Now, you mentioned Integrity International, or Integrity Initiative. It's becoming clear that there are a number of these operations out of Britain. Remember, we had before the Syrian false flag chemical weapons, the Skripal affair. This looks like another one of these. How does this thing work? How do they get these things organized?
Well, this is quite a story, and it has not yet broken into the mainstream media. It only has been reported by, it has been leaked by an organization which calls itself Anonymous. It was then published by a website called Moon in Alabama in the United States, by Sputnik, by some Indian papers. And it is quite an incredible story. What this refers to is an organization which operates through all the British embassies. They obviously have networks of people through whom they emanate a certain anti-Russia propaganda, and they have in each country so-called cluster groups. You could say agents of influence who are all of a absolutely raving anti-Russian profile. For example, as I mentioned, in the United States, Ian Brzezinski is one of them. He is the son of Zbigniew Brzezinski and member of the Atlantic Council and numerous other organizations. And the Atlantic Council, they put out on the 26th of November a collection of statements. I don't have the names here now, all of them, but all kinds of think tank think tank persons, members of the Atlantic Council, representatives of other think tanks, who all are raving and have foam at the mouth in proposing, that there should be an immediate cutting off Russia of any financial credits from the West or any financial even dealings, canceling the SWIFT agreement, then sending lethal weapons to Ukraine, make Ukraine and Georgia members of NATO immediately, deploy large NATO flotillas into the Black Sea, and all kinds of such proposals, which, if you would carry them all out, you can be certain that we would be in a complete showdown between NATO and Russia instantly, with the potential of the whole thing escalating to a real war, because there are certain red lines which Russia will not accept. And I think that is the reason why there have been all these warnings of the war coming from Russia in the recent period. So this is the way British intelligence operates. I mentioned Ian Brzezinski in Germany, one of the so-called cluster groups. One of the members is Klaus Naumann, also former, I think, NATO commander or NATO general secretary, high position, who has even called in the past, if I remember correctly, for first use of nuclear weapons. He has called for a showdown with Russia in the Arctic. And he is one of these absolutely hardcore neocons. And that is the profile. So, this is meddling. If you have somebody, some organization going onto an anti-Russia Cold War, almost turning into a hot war propaganda, working through the embassies in each country. I mean, if that is not meddling, I don't know what. Now, I find it absolutely incredible that the mainstream media has not picked up this at all. However, when Foreign Minister Lavrov was in Paris meeting with Macron on Monday this week, he sharply attacked this. However, it has not been picked up by the Western media. So if you look at that, and most media outlets completely take the side of Poroshenko. They don't report objectively the two sides or even ask for an investigation. So what this reminds you of is that these kinds of censorships and black propaganda operations are typical for a war kind of behavior. And I think it should give people to think, because if people are denied having access to information to make themselves their own judgment, it should really ring the alarm bells in the highest way. But I would suggest that everybody looks at this integrity initiative. Sputnik did an interview with me about it. And, however, I think it would really deserve much wider attention. And, I think in each parliament, there should be a parliamentarian investigation, because there's big freak out about Russiagate, about Russian meddling. But here you have, again, a clear-cut case of British meddling. And this apparatus may very well be the same one, or, in coordination with the forces which committed the coup against, or attempted the coup against President Trump. And I find it extremely interesting that Lavrov said that the provocation in Ukraine or by Ukraine was done by the same circles who are trying to destroy the Trump presidency. And that is exactly on the mark.